Hello and welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm John Cartwright and I'm joined by Steve Bowling to discuss these Monolith Soft job listings. So 2 days ago, Monolith Soft put up a hiring page for technical artists, programmers, planners, designers, and management support for the next Legend of Zelda project. And Andre sent me this in the morning to do an update, and I said to myself, whoop-de-doo. Because basically Monolith Soft have been assisting with Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild, Link Between Worlds, and a bunch of other Zelda projects in the past. So I assumed this was just another one of those, just like another assistance role. But then these concept art images from 2017 pop up, and something very interesting is in one of these. So when you zoom in to this first image here, you can see the Triforce crest. And what's interesting as well is it looks like it has that loft wing under it as well. So it's like the full Triforce symbol. So Steve, like, what's your first impression of that? Like, do you think this is just a coincidence, or could this very well be a Zelda image we're looking at right now?
So I was immediately skeptical when I first saw these images because, you know, I was thinking this is old concept art. It could have just been thrown on a job listing. Just to show kind of what games Monolith Soft has been involved in, and what better way to attract potential employees or potential talent than by saying, hey, we've worked on a ton of Zelda games. But after I actually decided to look at the job listing itself, very much seems like they're trying to say, hey, this job listing is for this specific game, and here's the art for it. And there is undeniably evidence that this is at least tangentially related to the Zelda franchise. I mean, that is undeniably the Triforce crest in that artwork. And the thing is, it's such a subtle reference in that art. Like, if you look at it full size, it is very hard to spot the Triforce in these images. It's not like it's just thrown right out there. So to me, it lies in that realm of they may have uploaded this artwork thinking nobody would find this, but there it is now. So I'm leaning heavily towards this is legit, that this is hiring for a Zelda-related game. With Cadence of Hyrule now being a thing, we know that Nintendo is open to letting third parties use the Zelda IP, and who would they trust more than the people that helped them make Breath of the Wild to handle that IP with care.
And it feels like Zelda is bigger than it's ever been. Breath of the Wild sold so well, and it's kind of what pushed the Switch to being what it is today. So I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo just want like a Zelda every single year. Because this year we have, well, last year we only had Hyrule Warriors, I guess. But this year we have Link's Awakening remake, Cadence of Hyrule, and there's very likely going to be a Breath of the Wild sequel next year. So I guess the question is this Monolith Soft game going to be the Breath of the Wild sequel, or is it going to be what comes after that? Because they're only hiring now, that kind of makes me think this isn't an immediate project. So I guess what I'm thinking is we're going to have a Breath of the Wild sequel in 2020, and then maybe, possibly, the Monolith Soft game in 2021.
I definitely believe that. When you think about Zelda games, I mean, we obviously associate them with being multi-year projects. So if they're just staffing up, and if you look at some of those listings, they're for things that you do in the very early stages of game development. You know, designers, technical character model artists, that type of stuff. So that all kind of points to a game that won't be ready even next year. So I'm definitely with you on that, John. And it is, you know, Zelda is more popular now than it has been in quite some time. And, you know, Skyward Sword, as much as I love it, didn't resonate with fans the way that Nintendo probably hoped it would. A lot of people, it's very divisive in terms of the control scheme especially. But Breath of the Wild is kind of like a modern Ocarina of Time story. Like, it took Zelda and reinserted it into the mainstream in a way that previous entries just couldn't. It's definitely, I agree with you, a key part of the Switch's success.
So the more I look at these images, actually, the more I just kind of think, like, what if this actually is Zelda? Because, of course, we have the Triforce crest in there. But there's also this statue. I'm just sort of thinking, like, what if that is a goddess statue? It even has the wings of the goddess statue. This could very well just be this Monolith Soft interpretation of it. And, like, this whole entire area looks like something... It looks kind of like the Temple of Time in Breath of the Wild, in fact. And then we look at the female protagonist or character in the second image. And she has a crown on. Like, what if she is Zelda? What if that dragon is, like, I don't know, like Valu from Wind Waker or something? These all do seem like interpretations of possible Zelda elements. And it's cool to see them in this style as well. I said in the update we've never really had like a medieval Zelda, and of course we've had Zeldas set in medieval times, but never like this kind of style of medieval. Like this is like gritty fantasy style, and I guess Monolith Soft are a good studio to trust with that. Really, they do tell some quite dark stories, so it'd be interesting to see their little interpretation of what Zelda is. And like just look at the Armored Knight. Like, what if that's Link?
That would be incredible, but I do have a slightly different take on this Armored Knight. I think, or at least I hope, I hope, that this game won't really feature Link. You know, there's been a loud contingent of fans that really want a female protagonist in a Zelda game, and I've long been a proponent of, if you're going to have a female protagonist in a Zelda game, make it Zelda. And I could really see a game where we start out with this kind of cool fantasy stylized Zelda that we imagine they're portraying in that artwork, where she's got the long flowing cape and the kind of maybe like a saber type of sword. I can't really tell. I'm not good with swords. I could see it being similar to Breath of the Wild, in which Zelda obtains different types of gear that she can wear that can dramatically alter her appearance, just like we had just like we had Link in that full set of Hylian knight armor. I could definitely see Zelda donning a similar outfit and taking on some bad guys by herself. I mean, I would love to see Link as well, because Link is one of my favorite Nintendo characters of all time, but I'd definitely be okay with Zelda taking the spotlight for this game.
How cool would it be if she starts off in that armored gear, and then like an hour later, she finally unmasks herself, and like we think it's Link up until now, then she takes off her mask and it's just this like flowing long hair, and it's clearly Zelda. That would just be such a cool reveal.
Oh man, that would be like the 80s with Samus all over again. You know, yeah. you start playing this game thinking you're playing as one person, and then suddenly you just get this massive twist. I would be all for that.
Well, we've spoken quite a bit about what these images might be, but let's talk about the concept of an actual Monolith Soft Zelda game, because we both played the Xenoblade games. What would you gain from having a Monolith Soft develop Zelda? Like, would it be a more focused story narrative, or do you just expect like a normal Zelda experience, but from Monolith Soft?
So I absolutely do not expect a normal Zelda experience, and that's for a number of reasons. The first being that Monolith Soft really kind of cut their teeth on more traditional RPGs like Xenoblade. I mean, you know, Xenoblade has a unique combat system, but it's definitely more traditional in the sense that it is much more narrative focused than any Zelda game. So I would love to see them use their storytelling skills to give us something that we haven't gotten from the series, something that really expands on the lore of Zelda. But that being said, they're, judging by the job listing, they seem to be stepping out of their own comfort zone in a way, because they make it very clear that this is going to be an action game. That is new for them, and new for, well, kind of new for Zelda. So I kind of get this image in my head that this is going to be almost like a hybrid of, I don't want to say Devil May Cry, but I also don't want to say Hyrule Warriors. But somewhere kind of in the vein, closer to like a Bayonetta or a Devil May Cry crossed with The Legend of Zelda. That's the impression I get, especially from that character design. I think of like how that long flowing scarf will look as she's just running through and plowing through enemies and stringing together combos and doing crazy stuff like that. So the image I have in my head is kind of a more stylish action type game.
After you said that, the first game that came to my mind, and I know people don't want to hear this, but the first game that came to my mind was Dark Souls. But ever since I first saw that concept art image, I had such a strong Dark Souls vibe from that. So I do wonder, like, can they make it a bit more combat focused and make combat, you know, a bit more integral to the experience? Because combat in Breath of the Wild was pretty dynamic, but enemies never really put up that much of a fight. Like, you always just had either stronger enemies or enemies with like larger health bars, but no matter what happens, they're always going to do the same sort of moves. So I do wonder if combat's just going to be the focus of this Zelda game, and that is Monolith Soft's strength. Like most of their games revolve around their combat system. So I guess if you were to get Monolith Soft involved with Zelda, you would want them to have a very unique style of combat.
Very true. You know, I did not think about the link to a Souls-type game. I don't really play the Souls-type games. I'm currently struggling with Sekiro pretty bad.
Me too.
Well, I'm glad I'm not alone. But yeah, that is an interesting take, because it would make more sense from a lot of angles, because the Zelda series isn't typically one that's like packed full of enemies to fight. Like, you encounter small groups, you know, and usually it's one-on-one battles or a small handful of enemies. So taking that into a more Souls-like game would make a lot of sense, especially, you know, if you just have to kind of deepen the already existing combat system and make enemies a little tougher and smarter. That is definitely something that I think Monolith Soft would be well prepared to pull off.
And are you picturing just like a one-person game, or do you think this is going to have, like, will we have like a party of characters? Do you think Zelda's going to like recruit other people, or is this just like a traditional solo adventure?
I feel like this is a traditional solo adventure. Again, the action game thing is really sticking with me there, because I mean, Monolith has done some network stuff in games. I don't see Zelda as being like a couch co-op game, except for Four Swords. I don't really see it being like an online multiplayer game. I don't think Monolith Soft has done a ton in that space. I could be wrong. Yeah, I see it as like a single player adventure, just, you know, especially because of the action element to it. I think it's just going to be, we take control of a singular character. Maybe there is a potential where the narrative drives us to switch between Link and Zelda, or Zelda and another character like Impa or somebody. But I do think it'll be a single-player adventure.
And I guess this could provide a very different experience to Breath of the Wild, because basically all of Monolith Soft's games, while being huge, sprawling worlds, they're all pretty linear. Apart from X, I suppose. Like Xenoblade 1 and 2, you're always going from point A to point B and progressing through the world as you go by. So I guess this might even address the complaints that some people had with Breath of the Wild. So for one, it would be more story-focused. It would also be linear, or at least more linear. So that could be a chance to sort of return to the dungeon structure that a few people kind of missed in Breath of the Wild. Honestly, I wasn't that disappointed with the lack of dungeons. I quite liked the non-linearity of Breath of the Wild, but there's a place for everyone, right? And I guess this with Monolith Soft might be their key to sort of like catering to those who want that more connected experience.
I agree with you, John, that I didn't really miss dungeons in Breath of the Wild. I liked the change in structure, but you know, we definitely aren't representative of absolutely everybody that loves Zelda. It's a massive franchise and people love it for tons of different reasons. And I do think that there is a good chance that this game could be linear, especially if it does release in 2021, as we've been speculating. That gives it basically a 2-year development track, and making a big open world game, I don't see that happening even with the groundwork laid by Monolith Soft with Breath of the Wild. I think that that'll be saved for a proper Breath of the Wild sequel, and this is probably an entirely different, I would probably classify this as a spin-off, if anything, just like Cadence of Hyrule is definitely not going to be part of the Zelda canon. So I would say that this would be something that is easier to develop, something like a linear adventure, you know, that sticks to the known conventions of the franchise.
And also another thing we didn't really consider is, what if Monolith Soft are helping with Breath of the Wild 2 while also doing their own Zelda game? Because Monolith Soft are built up of 3 different studios, and I assume one of them is probably working on like maybe Xenoblade Chronicles 3 or something. And then the other studio tends to support with other projects. So one studio, they've done like Pikmin 3, Animal Crossing New Leaf, and of course Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild. So it'd be funny if Monolith Soft not only are making their own Zelda game, but are also assisting with another Zelda game.
Yeah, I could see that being true. You know, we know that they played no small role in Breath of the Wild, and it would seem strange to me if Breath of the Wild 2 or a sequel to it is in the works that they wouldn't be involved. I still don't think Nintendo quite has that open world expertise that Monolith Soft brings to the table. So I firmly believe that at least one of their studios is supporting Breath of the Wild 2's development.
Do we both agree that this isn't Breath of the Wild 2? Like, this could very well be next year's game, for all we know.
Oh, 100%. There's no way this is Breath of the Wild 2. I don't think Nintendo would allow them to advertise it in such a way.
Sure.
I don't think, you know, common sense is that Nintendo is working on a new Zelda. Nintendo is always working on a new Zelda, but letting a partner developer put it out there so publicly, I don't think is something they'd allow.
Mm-hmm. And I was reading over the comments for our update video, and one person said, like, what if this is Skyward Sword HD? I don't think that is the case. I don't think they'll give Monolith Soft a remake. They tend to do that to other studios like Monster Games or Grezzo. Like, even Monolith Soft didn't even do Xenoblade Chronicles 3D. That was Monster Games. So I think Monolith Soft's expertise are developing new games. I don't think they really use them for asset remakes or anything like that. So I'm pretty confident in saying that this listing is not for a remake.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, Monolith Soft has never done that. Probably will never do that. Nintendo seems to value them too highly for that. Not a knock on the talented people at either of those other studios. It's just Nintendo seems to slot certain studios into certain tasks, and they like to keep them there. But not only that, but the art we have just wouldn't make sense for a normal remake. They're not going to go back and develop new concept art for a remake of a game. They're going to use what they already had and just try to get closer to that.
Do you think that there's a chance of Zelda fatigue kicking in after this? Because let's say that we have, Link's Awakening this year with Cadence of Hyrule, and then next year Breath of the Wild 2. The year following that we have Monolith Soft's game, and knowing Nintendo, there's probably going to be some remakes too. Like, what if they port Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD and remake whatever else? I mean, we already have Link's Awakening being remade. Do you think that this could possibly be a bad thing, like too much Zelda?
On any console other than the Switch, I would be more worried. But the Switch is something everybody wants every game on. So even if they don't want to play it, they still want it available. So I'll be honest, as a huge Zelda fan, I welcome more content. I'm okay with these little spin-off games or non-canon games in between the big, 3-4 year development cycles for major Zelda titles. I think if we started getting something on the caliber of Breath of the Wild every single year, people would start to feel overwhelmed by it. I think fans are wise to take these as like little kind of palate cleansers in between the much larger Zelda experiences that are being developed first party. So I'm not really worried about that. I think if we were talking about a console that was more traditional, like the Wii U or the GameCube, where you didn't have the ability to just play it literally wherever you are, then people might feel like they don't have enough time for these. But I think with the Switch being portable and the fact that people do play it away from the house constantly, that people feel like they have a lot more time for these games.
I also think another big attribute to that is every Zelda game is different. Like, it's not like an Assassin's Creed thing where, of course, they're built on the same foundation, but they're like different locations. Every Zelda game that we know of at the moment is so different to the last. Like, Cadence of Hyrule looks nothing like Link's Awakening Remake, and Link's Awakening Remake looks nothing like Breath of the Wild. And I guess Monolith Soft's game would, of course, not look anything like Breath of the Wild too. So I guess if we keep having more and more Zelda games, but they all look and play differently to one another, then fatigue probably won't ever set in.
Yeah, that is a very good point. I mean, the Zelda series is known for constantly changing things up, from art style to mechanics to everything else. And that was a really great analogy you made with Assassin's Creed, because as different as they can be setting-wise, mechanically they all feel very much the same. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's a really valid point, and I definitely agree with you on that.
Alright, to end up, Steve, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you could choose any other development studio to handle Zelda, who would you choose?
Wow. That is tough because I don't trust a lot of development studios. But I would want to, and people are going to hate on me for this, I'd want to see Square Enix do a Zelda game. So we're taking Monolith Soft and going the full action route with Zelda. I want to see another developer take it and go the full RPG route with Zelda.
Right. I mean, Capcom made Zelda in the past, so it's not too crazy to imagine Square Enix doing it. But yeah, I think just having different studios have different interpretations of what Zelda can be is really exciting stuff. I'd quite like to see From Software do it. I'm not imagining just like a Dark Souls Zelda. I'm just imagining From Software's world building implemented in the Zelda world, because From Software tells such great stories without actually telling the story. They do it with their world design, and with Zelda's like interpretive lore, that would work so well. But yeah, of course, there's lots of different studios that could handle Zelda. I'm not sure all of them could do it justice, but I think Monolith Soft have enough experience with Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild and Link Between Worlds, and of course they'll be probably directed by Aonuma as well, so there's probably not too much to worry about. But yeah, this is very exciting stuff, Steve, and I can't wait to see this actually come to fruition. And I guess we probably won't be waiting too long, or at least not to see whatever's next in the Zelda series. Probably Breath of the Wild 2 first.
Like you, I'm very hyped based on this concept artwork. If we get a Zelda game that matches this artwork that we've seen online, I'm all in.
Steve, talking to you about this has got me really excited, and I can't wait to see what comes up from this. But why don't you guys let us know what you think down below, and of course you can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter, and of course be sure to subscribe to GameXplain for a lot more on the next Zelda, and other things gaming too. Until next time, bye.